Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. This is Isa Abu Isa. Welcome to another episode of Knowledge is Wealth. Rich people own libraries, poor people own big TVs. Poverty starts in the mind before it reaches your hands, and knowledge is wealth.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is my co-host.
Wa alaikum salam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is Coach Gaines.
This is Nafis Abu Zaid. Alhamdulillah. We're back at you with Knowledge is Wealth. This is episode 7. And we have a special treat because from this episode until probably like the next following episodes, we're going to be covering an extensive topic that is very pertinent and very relevant, actually, and current for our situation. And that is dealing with the structure and how financial literacy can help the houses of Allah, the Masajid of Allah, during the times such as we found ourselves with the economy crisis and even a pandemic like this. So mostly what you're going to see is a lot of masajids are struggling, smaller masajids are struggling, and in terms of trying to survive or weather this particular storm while the economy crashes. So they're trying to find means and methods and ways to raise money up to support those masjids. But we want to show you how Knowledge is Wealth episode and how what we've been talking about plays a direct role to all of this and how it's all connected from the start, and that we're going to go back though. So I want y'all to bear with us. We're going to go a little bit back to understand the function of the masjid and the function and the role of the masjid so that you can get a pretty much understanding of it. First and foremost, we want to start off with the clerican call, okay? Many of you will understand what this means afterwards. As far as the title, our brother coach and co-host is going to give us some background to why we say what masjid you go to. So once you get an understanding here. So the clerican call, undoubtedly, the Muslims are worthy righteous of Allah on earth because they are given the mandate to lead, to set the pace for others to emulate. And there are many verses that come to mind from Surah Ali Imran, from Surah Al-Hajj, where Allah Jalla wa Ala says, let there be a group from amongst you who rise up, commanding that which is good, prohibiting that which is evil. They establish the prayer, etc. All right? Allah Jalla wa Ala undoubtedly also says, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةٌ وَسَطًا لِتَكُونَ شُهَدَاءَ. Allah says in Surah Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the second juz of Surah Baqarah, which is verse 143, like thuswise we have made you into a just, balanced nation. And we have made you upon the middle course so that you can be a witness for mankind, and that the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a witness for you. So that shows us that we do as a ummah should be leading mankind. And that's pretty much what this was just saying. We are righteous, worthy righteous of Allah as well, because we have been given the office or the mandate to actually lead or set the pace for others to emulate. To be able to carry out these noble duties, the Muslim community needs to put in place variable programs, institutions and projects that will stand the test of time. And in this talk, inshallah ta'ala, you're going to find out the contrast between the masajids of yesteryears, which was in the past, and the masajids of today that's relevant, okay?
You know, it's something you just said that made my bells go off. When you said putting things in place that survive the test of time. That's very interesting because if things were in place, the Muslims, especially the smaller masajid, probably wouldn't be struggling as much as they are if things like were put in place as far as economics and social gears were put in place. Then when this type of stuff happens, which you can never know when it's going to happen, nobody ever expected for this to happen in America in 2020, right? So it hits you, and now you find yourself scrambling because things weren't put in place that can survive those tests of time. It's actually, once it happened, it was like a week after that, 2 weeks after that, the masses are in trouble. And just
to add to what you're saying, I've been in a lot of khutbahs, a lot of lectures where the reminder that the houses of Allah are maintained by the believers, and usually when you hear that reminder, a bucket goes around, a collection plate goes around. And we used to always say amongst ourselves, we would give, but we would say, this feels like church. It feels like the bucket is going around right after we get these reminders.
Like the black clergy.
Like, yeah, so, but I always had the question that the houses of Allah are maintained by the believers, and it thinks to me that whoever takes the initiative to establish and build the house of Allah, just as much as you plan who the imam is going to be, just as much as you plan what location it's going to be, there should be a plan, a financial plan on how that structure will be a service to the community and not rely so much on the community that if the community doesn't come forth with, that we lose the entire, we lose our resource.
So it was a role reversal of the Masjid and the people almost.
Yeah, so I feel, but it brought that question to mind: that is that responsibility more on the parishioner coming in, the servant that is coming in, or the ones who took on the role to build it from the beginning?
Well, actually, both of them play a significant role in maintaining the Masjid.
Okay.
Allah Jalla wa Ala, He says, إِنَّمَا يَعْمُرُ مَسَاجِدَ اللَّهِ مَنْ آمَنَ بِاللَّهِ وَيَوْمٍ آخِرٍ. Allah says that the Masajids, the houses of Allah, are only maintained by those who believe in Allah. So this here shares both responsibilities for the one who comes in and the one who actually establishes. Both of them have the right, if they believe in the law, you know what I mean, they believe in the law on the last day. Allah says, wa iqama salat wa ata zakat, and they establish the prayer and they give the zakat, wa lam yakhsha illallah, and they fear no one except Allah. Allah tells you how it's maintained. So that's true. Both plays a part, but there is a structural role. But I just think that honestly, if we don't go back looking in the past, we're not going to find the answers for the future. And that's where we're going to see, inshallah ta'ala, today's show, where we can highlight some of those points. So that was a good point that you brought in terms of the structure. It is, however, pathetic and disturbing that Muslim community, for a very long time, have not been able to live up to the expectation, judging by its moral bond institutions, of which the Masajid is one. The causes of this sorry state are diverse and complex, but the major one is lack of management acumen and the inability of imams and masjid officials to understand and cope with the dynamics of this age. And it's important that we understand this point. There is a level of knowledge that need to be well proportioned amongst everyone that plays a responsible role in the maintenance of the masjid.
Yes.
That knowledge must be well proportioned. You shouldn't have only one individual in the masjid have all of the knowledge, and then other people in roles are weak or deficient in their understanding of knowledge. And how is they going to, it's not going to work like that. So if you are the treasury, for example, you have the role and responsibility of collecting the funds and dealing with the management of the funds and so forth. If you don't have the necessary knowledge and equipped with the necessary knowledge, how can you properly run that position? You can't, right? If another individual, for example, he's the custodian, or the other individual, he's the chairman, or the other individual, he makes sure that he pays attention to the structure of the edifice of the actual buildings. Is there any wear or tears? Is there any mold? Any things like that? If they don't have the necessary knowledge, right, to fulfill the responsibility or the role of those responsibilities or those offices, it's not going to be equally balanced.
So there needs to be some type of leadership that if that leadership doesn't have the total package of finance, of contracting, of spiritual knowledge, that he has to be wise enough to delegate and bring that insulation around him, so that now he has the best person at the treasury head. He has the best contractor fixing the pipes, making sure that things are being contracted, the roof and all of those type of things. You have your the treasurer will be your bean counter. He'll have your balance sheet, your checks and balance, and then you have the knowledge portion. Or you may even have a security portion.
But look where the eases was at. The eases already laid out there for you. That was our Prophet ﷺ. That's exactly what he did. It is a principle. Sheikh Uthaymeen always brings this principle. It's a principle. The closer you are to the time of the Prophet ﷺ and his companions, the more correct you will be. Right? Now, if you think about that, right? The further you are from them, the more inconsistency is going to be. So if you listen to what this just was laying out, lack of management acumen and inability of imams and masjid officials to understand and cope with the dynamics of this age. All right? All of that information, if they were stuck closely to how the Prophet ﷺ already laid the structure for how the Masjid is supposed to run. And we're going to get into that. The Masjids of yesteryears, that's what we mean, versus the Masjids of today. Because you might say, okay, what do this got to do with now? What does this got to do with how we survive the pandemic now? It got a lot to do with it. Because if you look at our structure, we got to go back to the core of our structure, of our Masajids in the first place. How are they ran? Yeah. Are they closely related? Are they holding on to? So all of this plays a major part of that.
You know, I was doing some research on like Chinatown, for example, and it goes into what we're saying, right? And they were saying how, say if somebody would come over from their homeland, from China, right? And they would bring them over and say they wanted to start a business or they want to start some type of whatever, right? Some type of organization. So when the people came over, they would start, if they didn't have a certain person in place, they didn't have the knowledge, they would pay for one of them to go to school and get the knowledge and then come back and be part of the board. Then they would send the other one to school. He would come back and be part of the board. They would create a board like that. Literally pay for people to go to school.
Well, we used to do that. And actually, honestly, alhamdulillah, with Sheikh Tahir, he was the first one that I've seen being endorsed by the community and supported while he was overseas for a period of time.
Yeah, and it was a number of other brothers as well along with him, yeah.
Okay, but we've only seen that initiative take place in the spiritual aspect and the seeking the knowledge of the Aqidah and of the Sunnah, you know, which is but that also has to be employed in secular. When you see a child that may not be on his way to go overseas, but you see he's doing really good in math and calculus, he's really an engineer. You know, why are we not pushing these children towards those master's programs and those doctor's programs like we push them in basketball or sports? So it was just an observation. Actually, and a lot of our children are excelling in those lanes, but then they're being told, well, you know what, the best knowledge of the dunya, you should go be a student of knowledge.
Well, actually, that's a mistake. Because in Islam, all of those areas are covered. They're not separated like secular and ethics. It's not like that. In Islam, all of those areas, you're going to see in this episode, we're going to go over that. All of those areas were covered and taught by the earlier Muslims. All of those areas. So for someone to say, okay, now you're worrying about the dunya because you're learning this type of aspect of knowledge. If you're learning medicine or you're learning like engineering or you're learning so forth like that, then that's dunyawi. No, you're wrong.
But what kind of guidance counselors need to be in place to help these children? I mean, you have your high school guidance counselors.
That's going to come back. That's going to come
but
back.
But who in the community, you know, what type of people do we need to start to look out and reach out to that can help, you know, harness these skills when they're noticed in the homes from the children? You know,
well, that's going to go back to the center point of the imam or the leader.
Okay.
All right.
I'm jumping ahead.
The leader, job and responsibility in the Muslim country, who's the ruler, would delegate all of this. Right. But if you're not in a Muslim country, if you don't have the leader as far as a Muslim ruler, you understand?
Government is not a Muslim,
then it would be an imam. And I know some people get that little mistaken, especially with the Abu Muslim situation, not understanding. Our brother is going to really give us some background on that because you might have been unjust to the brother in some way.
Yeah, and that's kind of like, you know, from what I remember, that's what he was trying to employ. He was trying to have some sort of central leadership for the Muslims in the West, you know, more or less the indigenous Muslims of the West.
And actually, everything that we're finding out, he was more correct. And if we truly understood it, what was in line in the guidelines of the Sunnah, it was more correct with that. But
because it gave the idea of regional leadership, where we're not being led and controlled by scholarship that's outside of our country. Whereas though now we have people that are here that there's a level of leadership, and that leadership helps a vision and helps guide the community into a direction.
Let's put it like this: it got nothing to do with scholars outside or inside the country.
Okay.
Because any leadership will still have to consult with the people of knowledge.
Yes.
Period. Because Allah already made that clear. Allah even made that with the Prophet Fasalu ahla dhikri. Ask those who know if you do not know. Ask those who have.
But that's having husnul van in the leadership. No, you would know. You wouldn't assume that they're not talking to other scholarships.
My question would be what that is. My question would be, just so you can fill that in.
Yeah.
My question would be when we say ask them if they don't know, but when it comes to everyday dealings in my country or the norms of my country, I don't need to ask anybody outside of my country.
We don't have. You're being specific. We don't have to get into that.
You know what I'm saying?
The reason why I'm saying we don't have to get into that because right now, think about it. It is still a protocol when it comes to approaching knowledge.
No doubt.
So what I'm saying from that perspective,
a general principle.
Any Amir, any leader is still going to roll with that same protocol if they're using it correctly.
No doubt.
So for me to say, okay, I'm a leader, and then now I just need to worry about my only locale or this and that, or the scholars of that's in the East,
or to assume that he's not educated enough to do research from the scholars of the past, or not speaking or consulting with the Lejna.
Well, every leader
or any other
always asks questions because even the greatest kings always had wazir around. They always had wuzara around them. They always had ministers and all that.
And the reality is this.
So,
the reality is this.
No doubt.
There's always going to be a connection between the one who's following the guidelines with that of the people of knowledge.
Yeah, no doubt.
There's always going to be a connection.
You can't break that.
The problem is, and we got to be honest.
What's the problem?
The problem is, we got to be honest. There was some sabotaging going on.
Okay.
And we're getting ready to get to that. There was some rifts and some strife. So it's easy to say that one person want all of this power for themselves. It's easy to say one person is bigging themselves up and making themselves look like they're superior.
He's calling to himself.
He's calling to himself.
So is it
easy
possible that
and then
it's easy to blame people
It's
for
easy
that.
to say that he's not trying to connect the people with the scholars.
Okay.
It's easy to say he's not trying to do this. He's moving by his own. But technically, if you go back to what's actually the haq is you learn the information, you utilize your tools that you learn, you do your best. When you come to a problematic problem within your best that you don't understand, you then reach out and consult with the people of knowledge.
Yeah,
that's the correct way.
Ask people of knowledge if you don't.
So basically,
way.
what's we're saying is that principle that you just brought up was being misused, meaning that things that
wasn't being misused was actually purposely put there so that they could sabotage whatever's going on.
So my question would be is that we clearly see that it wasn't that people didn't know what was supposed to have been done. They just didn't want that to be done
for another reason. And we'll get to that a little bit later for the agenda base.
Okay.
For another reason, we'll get to that a little bit later.
And Abu Muslim wasn't the first, I don't know the details of what could have been correct or incorrect. We're just talking about leadership and everybody from a community or from a locale or in the region or people who have less resources falling in line with a more of an Amir scenario. You had Jamal Al-Amin, you had Waterford Muhammad. So historically in American culture, we can look at these and see what worked and what didn't work. But it's a taboo to employ any of that type of leadership because it goes into this political taboo. Like, this is getting into some hizbiyah, or it's getting into calling to yourself, or there's no Mahdi, or there's no Khalifa. You can't do that. But we're not talking about at the extreme.
Yeah, we're not talking about mutlaq anyway. You're not talking about something that's
exactly. Somebody's obeying mutlaq.
Unrestrictedly. We're not talking about that.
Exactly.
But you do have to have a central theme and central structure. And that's what we're going to learn. You got to have a central structure. And it mentioned in the next line, it said the problem of administrative incompetence has eroded the integrity of Muslim clerics and has further subject them to ridicule at elated fora like conferences, like TV, radio programs, naming ceremonies, funerals, graduations, ceremonies, and marriages. This virus has spread to the Masajids. As such, has turned the Masajids to the abodes of argumentations, rifts, and conflicts. In fact, many of the Masajids we see around in the neighborhood sprang up as a result of the rift and the disagreements with leadership in the style of management adopted by some clerics and officials. Before you start, before you start, I want to mention something. W.D. Du Bois, right? He was charged with a task, and that task was to study the African, at that time what they known as the African American, was to study the black folks, all right, of Philadelphia. And they wanted to see whether or not it had something to do with their ethnicity.
Well, they was known as Negroes back then.
Right, as Negroes. As ethnicities was the reason why crime was high, or did it have something to do with their impoverished state? So anyway, what he was able to come up and show that during that time, which was known as the 7th Ward and the 5th Ward. We have down Walnut Street and so forth like that, which is in the Philadelphia Negro, by the way.
Yeah. South Philly. I mean.
He showed how the churches, there was one big church And then that one big church got into a strife. The riffraff started to happen. So some members from that church left and went down the street and started their own church. And then some riffraff happened with them, and then they went down later on and then started their own church. If you look at the Masajids, many of the Masajids, if you look at it, because so-and-so got a problem with so-and-so, or they don't agree with certain opinions, or they don't agree that we should take this stance, or they don't agree that we should do this, we break off from them in a fraction, and then we go over here and we start a masjid. What you don't understand what that does, the ramifications of that, we don't even understand. It's catastrophic. And that's why we're in the predicament we're in today. Look at the catastrophic problems of that. Because if masjid so-and-so remained one masjid, the resources could have did what? Would not been diversified.
They would have been consolidated resources.
It would have been consolidated resources.
Because the community is citywide. It's not broken down. The community is not broken down into neighborhoods. You might see a brother from South Philly praying in West Philly. A brother from North Philly praying in... So we need to understand where the community is.
So what's the word that we use for that? You can't stretch something too thin.
Can't stretch something too thin. So what happened was, once I pull myself out of there, and I get a bang of individuals following me, and we go start up another masjid, what we got to do? We got to raise funds for the masjid. We either got to rent the masjid because we don't got the money to build it.
Yeah, we need manpower.
We need manpower. We need this. We need that.
Yeah.
Now we're going to pull resources from the same people that circulate in these masjids that could have been helping out the masjid that was already there, that might even own the building. But we're going to pull from that and then pull over here for you to come here.
Well, we see one of the problems with that is we look in the city right now. We'll see one masjid to be beautiful and fixed while the other masjid is still on one leg. And they all claiming to be upon the same thing. So we see the materials, the manpower, the energy is stretched so thin that if you had... So you got all these different masjids. One looks good, one doesn't. This one doesn't have any money. This one has money.
One has classes,
one has classes, one doesn't. One has a heat, one doesn't.
Wherever the student go, that's where the people follow the student. That's who gets the classes.
And I know you might ask right now, but it's permissible to do masjids. I know you might ask right now, it's permissible to open up a masjid and do this. It's permissible to do that. That's not the question here. The question is the structure. Mm-hmm. You upset the balance in the structure when the riffraff comes in and you start to do that. Because what happened is it spread too thin. Now I got masjid A, masjid B, masjid C. It's all in alignment in danger of losing a masjid to weather this storm. Mm-hmm. Now I got to find how to get money raised up for masjid A, B, and C. When masjid, for example, a masjid B, C, and D, when masjid A was already there. Masjid A already owned this building. Masjid A was already established. But we broke off from masjid A.
And we broke off from masjid A to start masjid B and C.
and D. And then what we did is, not only we did that, we started warning against masjid A. We started saying masjid A is such and such. Masjid A is what's that. But when it comes out, masjid A still got resources. Masjid A still can weather the storm. Masjid A still have certain things. So now you need help.
Has the elders.
And this pandemic hit everyone. The government have passed out stimulus checks. Yeah. If you don't have a good job, essential job, you're not a truck driver, you don't need it, you're not working, your funds is being depleted too. So now I got to get together and rush and think of how we're going to save our masjids. How are we going to save our masjids?
It's a panic.
It's all go back to the structure.
Well, one of the things that it comes from it too, one of the problems becomes problematic, everybody's trying to battle for the same source of money, meaning the same people in the city. It's not like the Muslims are millions, so everybody's trying to suck from the same cup. So now this cup you sucking from, these people were basically in poverty before the pandemic. So they stretched thin even more so. And at the end of the day, what happens is that instead of the masjid being a place where we come for aid, and we come for support, and we come to help us out of these hard times, we become now the masjid has to come to that already poor and downtrodden community to keep them floating. Mm-hmm. That's a problem.
Mm-hmm. So it continues to say, in order to bring the basics in management, or in order to bring the basic management, organized efforts from Islamic workers, or in order to bring the masjid to limelight of the 21st century, there is the dire need for better coordination masajids, all right? Organized effort from Islamic workers and professionals. The masjid is a citadel of learning and a reliable institution for resurgence of Islam. Provide what the roles of the masjid is a clearing call, which all Muslims must respond to. If the heritage of our earlier predecessors must be sustained and projected at this auspicious moment, the Masajid was the first communal project embarked upon by the leader of mankind. That's the Prophet ﷺ in his quest to chart the course for the attainment of man's destiny. Let's stop here for a minute. I want you to understand something here. We all claim to follow Salaf as-Salih, the earlier predecessors, the righteous predecessors. If we truly claim to follow them like we say, then why is our structure is not set up like their structure? Why is there a big, large gap in between the way that they handle and manage the masajids, the houses of Allah? And if you look at ours now, is many of our masajids even running along the same course of that? It's not. I mean, the truth is in the play. It's not.
Yeah.
So you hear a statement all the time. Y'all probably heard this statement many times. They say that what? The latter generation, this is a statement of tribute to Imam Malik. The latter generation will not be rectified except for what?
Will rectify the former generation.
You have to go back to the past. You got to go back to emulate them. I don't want to hear a guy come to me talking about, look, I got the solution for the 21st century for the masajids and the houses of Allah. All they got to do is financially do this, blah, blah, blah. All they got to do is do blah, blah, blah. I ain't trying to hear that. Why? Because there was a system already in play that worked. There was a group of people that already preceded you.
And a lot of that stuff he probably saying is from that system. He just don't know it.
Exactly. They already set it up for you. So
Yeah.
why wouldn't you emulate them anyway when you already been ordered to emulate them? All right? Not just in belief, which is another big mistake. You're not just ordered to follow the companions in belief. That's another big mistake. There's a lot of other stuff. We say it, but we don't know what it means. Amalat and all that stuff. We don't know what that stuff really be meaning. So it's in all of that stuff. So let's continue real quick.
It wasn't taught.
All right. So it says, hence we must therefore borrow a leaf from his example, meaning the Prophet ﷺ, which suffices for us. Suffices for us for success and victory in this world and the next. May Allah strengthen His people and bless their efforts. Ameen. All right. I want to mention one more thing. All right. So the Masjid is one of the oldest institutions. It's one of the oldest institutions on earth, even older than man himself. One of the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala conferred on mankind is the grace of making the whole earth a mihrab, abode of worship, where the Lord is celebrated day and night. All activities in Islam revolve around the Masajid, the Masjid. And in the same vein, the civilization of Islam is not complete except with the Masjid. There are narrations from our beloved Prophet ﷺ. He said that what? He testified to the iman of an individual if he's one who knows to do what? His heart is connected to the masjid.
Yes.
This is a clear sign of a person iman if their heart is connected to the masjid. This is a clear sign of it, right? So Allah says in the Quran, "Inna awwala baytin wudi'a lin-nas lilladhi bi Bakkah." All right. It got me thinking about the article. I ain't gonna bring it up.
Oh man, leave it alone.
I ain't gonna bring it up. Okay, but anyway, the word Becca, right? The word Becca was one of the old names for Mecca. All right, so one of the old names for Mecca. Inna awwala baytin wudi'a lin-nasi lilladhi bi Bakkah mubarakan wa hudan lil-alamin. Allah says in Surah Ali Imran, verse 96. Rally, the first house of worship appointed for mankind was at Becca, which was known as Mecca, full of blessing and a guidance for Alameen. All right? We know who built Becca. We know who built it.
Ibrahim
and his son. Allah Azza wa Jal tells us about that way. Right? When they raised the qawa'id of the house, of the foundation, okay? Allah mentioned that in the dua they made. So, Abu Dhar, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, once asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is the oldest masjid on earth? Here go the companion asking the Prophet ﷺ, which masjid is the oldest? The Prophet ﷺ said, the Masjid al-Haram in Mecca. Abu Dhar radiallahu anhu again asked, what is the next oldest masjid? The Prophet ﷺ said, Al-Aqsa Masjid in Jerusalem, in Quds. He asked further, how much time were there between the building of these two great masajids, right? The Prophet ﷺ answered, 40 years. I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't even know this hadith actually exists. I mean, but I know it's some enlightened, right? So then he said, wherever you may be, here the Prophet ﷺ giving us some benefit here. Wherever you may be at the time of salat, you may pray, for the earth is a masjid. This is collected by the group, all right? Jabir ibn Abdullah radiallahu ta'ala anhu reported also that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the earth has been made sacred and pure and as a masjid for me, so wherever the time of prayer comes from any one of you, he should pray wherever he is. This is Bukhari wa Muslim. And another hadith, Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiallahu anhu narrated, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the whole earth is a masjid except the grave and the toilet. This is at Tirmidhi. What do we get from this?
First of all, the masjid is not restricted to 4 walls.
Yeah,
Places of prayer. The places of prayer are the entire earth. So how do we?
And you can't make the statement of you can't pray here. You can't trying to make it that a particular masjid is the only place you can pray, and you don't pray there, then there's something wrong with you because clearly I can pray in the grass. Clearly I can pray in a parking lot. Clearly, there's a couple of places.
So basically, what purifies one masjid over another?
That's what I'm saying. When the whole world is a masjid.
If it's not those masajid that was mentioned in Mecca, in Medina, and Jerusalem, outside of those masajid.
They are special masjids, but they are not masjids that hizbah should be made going anywhere.
Yeah, and plus you don't hear them being labeled. Those masjids are not labeled by the Prophet himself. Any of the early the past and present, they didn't label those masjids. And any masjid could be labeled. It could be those masjids, but those masjids aren't even labeled.
Yeah, there's no heads can be made around.
Exactly.
And which also shows you that you're restricting. You can't restrict the law to a place. So you have people everywhere, right? So when the prayer time comes, what do I supposed to do? I'm not in Mecca. I'm not in Jerusalem. All right, so I can't pray now because I need a building. I need to be in these masajids, or I need to be in a building that's a masjid. No, you can pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala no matter what. That's unrestricted, laid it out for you. The whole masjid.
So just because you have the masjid in the place that you want, suited the way you want, around the people you want, it doesn't mean that your prayer is any more accepted here than any other place.
And this is extremely important. Why? Because we have to look again. You want to say why the structure got messed up in the first place. It all is going to go back to the type of individuals understanding these key ingredients. Allah is the one on top of the masjid. Allah is the one whom worship is dedicated to. Allah is the one whom what? That the masjid should be dedicated for. It's not because so-and-so came out of his pocket. It's not because a group of so-and-so got together and they either built the masjid or they rented the masjid. It's not because this idara or administration. It's not because Fulan have studied for 20 years. He came back and now we're going to rally around him. We made a masjid. Ain't got nothing to do with none of that. The masjid, as the ayat said, what the ayat said here, وَأَنَّ الْمَسَاجِدَ لِلَّهِ فَلَا تَدَعُوا مَعَ اللَّهِ أَحَدًا. And the houses of Allah are for Allah alone. So invoke not anyone along with Allah. The masjid is Allah's property. That means you must go by what Allah laid forth. That's the point. And I think when that is missing, the structure has been damaged.
One of the things we miss out on is that, like you clearly saying, is that, maybe I could simplify it, you simplified it enough, but when the spiritual reason of going to the masjid was replaced with those things that you just mentioned, that was the end right there. Because once going to the masjid became a hangout, once going to the masjid became because somebody there or because you like the dye, or because they got slogans, they dress well, they got the nice thobe on it, and they scream and holler names of scholars. When that became the reason why you go to a masjid and not the spiritual connection to the one who created you, then the masjid itself, from that point, the whole structure of the masjid was done. That is the structure of the masjid.
It starts eroding.
That's the reality. It starts eroding from there. So all the other things that's less important than that erode along with that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay? So that's what happened. You know what I'm saying? It eroded. The basis of the masjid eroded. What the masjid was for eroded. So after that, you can't expect for everything else to erode right along with it. So
yeah, you made a good point. Also, I'm gonna give you another thing to look at. Let's remove the curtain here. It also explained that the people who want to establish a masjid, they need to understand these points.
Yeah.
When establishing a masjid, they really need to understand
knowledge is wealth again.
They need to really understand these points. Why?
Well.
Because what happened in the 21st century, what happened? People started competing with the building of masjids. And people started building it with worldly purposes. And they started to try to get greedy with trying to raise funds to fill themselves up with the masjid.
And champion the numbers.
So when you hear people talking about, and it bothers me, it really does, and I'm not here to take shots, but I'm just going to call a spade a spade. It bothers me when a person say it was 20,000 people in attendance. There were 500 people in attendance. Who cares? Who care how many people was in attendance? You know what I mean? If the ulama in any of the past books mentioned anything, it was a point of reference for historical reference why they were there. It wasn't so that I can call attention to the fact that this individual is the one that had many people with him. We have to understand these crucial points. You understand? These are real crucial points. Oh, come to my masjid because Jum'ah was packed outside the door. And we had about 500 people, 200 more extra than the people coming in. No, that's not what it's understood.
Or people are scared of what it looks like when they're seeing other places. Like back in the day, we didn't go to certain restaurants, or we didn't go to certain, clubs, or places that we went. Even stores. If you catch me in a store right now, I do this. Like, I might send my wife in the store. Like, now you going and wait outside. It don't fit me to be in the store. Now, I'm not saying that that's right. That could be arrogance or whatever, but we can't apply that to the masjid. This is the masjid I want to be seen in, or if I'm seen in this masjid, or if I'm seen around these people, I have this, I look like I'm on it. I look like I'm clear.
You just said that. I like that you said that, because the asl or the origin.
A little bit.
No, about the masjid though. The masjid part.
Uh-huh.
The origin of the masjid is you're supposed to love it already. Mm-hmm. That's the origin. Mm-hmm. Not whether or not is it bid'ah, is it ikhwani. That never should be your first question. Mm-hmm. Whenever you hear that there is a house of Allah anywhere, you are obligatory, it's obligated upon you to love the masjid. What is my point? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَسَاجِدُ يُذْكَرُ فِيهَا اسْمُ اللَّهِ كَثِيرًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also says, فِي بُيُوتٍ أَذِنَ اللَّهُ أَن تُرْفَعَ. Right? أَن تُرْفَعَ وَيُذْكَرَ فِيهَا اسْمُهُ. Right? وَيُسَبِّحُ لَهُ فِيهَا بِالْغُدَوِّ وَالْأَوْصَالِ. Allah says in two different verses, in two different surahs, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the first one that the Masajid in Surah Hajj, that the houses of Allah, wherein the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioned much. Allah also mentioned that in houses of Allah, where He had permitted that it be raised, that the elevation of these houses are raised because they what? They are connected to Allah. Mm-hmm. They are houses of Allah. So they are already raised. If they're already raised, they're what? Respected. Yes. They are cherished. They are loved.
Yes. And
do you understand? They are visited. And Allah says, where in these houses His name is mentioned. Also, He is glorified within, in the morning and the evening. So it's obligatory that we love the masjid first and foremost. That's the origin. Not, is it ikhwani? Is it Salafi? Is it this? You should not say, I love a masjid because they Salafi masjid alone. First of all, no. You love the masjid because it's the house of Allah. That's number one.
And Salafiyya can't be applied to a person, place, or a thing.
Which it shouldn't be applied to a person,
Mahmoud said that. He said once a person, place, or thing was applied to the dawah, he said that was the beginning of the hizbiyah.
Exactly. It caused a problem. So now let's go back and really look at this stuff.
So basically what I'm getting from what we talked about so far, should we be looking to perhaps as a solution for what we're going through during this trying time with the COVID-19, Masajid need help, people are reaching out. Are we looking at the number of Masajid that are out there, and we're saying that perhaps should there be some consideration in consolidating into larger Masajid?
Why? Because we learned when Allah says ظَهَرَ الْفَسَادُ فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ, and to the end of that beautiful verse, when Allah said that what happened on land and earth, on earth and sea, right? Because evil has appeared, fasad, right? Mm-hmm. What do we learn? The ulama explained to us that what? Whenever a trial happens, it's supposed to make you become reflective, repentful, remorseful, and start to re-strategize. You got to go back now. So now all of us need to start looking at the structure and the way that we've been running the masajids. That's why we having this talk. Well, it's the connection of it.
I remember we were speaking on this before we started. The coach said, you're absolutely right. And one of the obstacles, though, in the way of unfortunately doing what you're saying is that, number one, people's hearts are attached to a person, place, and a thing. It's not necessarily attached spiritually to the masjid. So that's why they don't love every masjid. That's the first problem. So another problem is that when you talk about consolidating, which I think people should do, and I guess we'll get into that. We'll talk more about that, which they should do. But the problem is that unfortunately, when you were mentioning when people want the numbers, they mention the numbers of the masjid. They say, oh, all of that shows that people are building these masjids and they're establishing these slogans in these buildings because people want money. And it's all about getting you to come bring your money and your wealth to the masjid and not your soul to the masjid and to clean your soul up. So what's happening is that so when you say consolidate, people get scared because it's going to take money out of somebody's mouth.
It's gonna transfer power.
So it's almost like a let me finish. It's almost like a franchise. It's almost like the McDonald's type situation where it's a one big thing and then somebody buys from you, then he go franchise up McDonald's over here. So everybody's franchising these masjids, and if you consolidate that, you bringing all that stuff back underneath one banner. Then somebody not getting paid.
Who gonna pay for the carpet?
Somebody's not getting paid, so that's why you're going to have a pushback because you can't franchise to your homie no more.
So here I got a question for you guys. What makes a masjid profitable?
Are we there? Are we there? Are we there?
We there right now. We there. We there, Shay.
Like,
what makes a masjid profitable?
I mean, the investment is the souls. So if
Mm-hmm.
the souls are being liberated, if the minds are clear to receive the guidance so that the souls can be liberated, the masjid has the return on the investment in those who contributed.
Yeah.
Am I?
Come on, you want to line? I'm not saying you're wrong.
I mean, I shot my load.
You shot your load. What you think? What makes the masjid profitable?
Well, I can't say what he just said because he took it. But I'm going to say that one of the things that can help that if the masjid is economically sound. If the masjid has situations where as though if situations like this happen and this falls apart, that the masjid can keep surviving. Because if it can't keep surviving, it can't do what Coach said. Mm-hmm. So it has to be able to be viable.
And what I meant by clearing the minds, if the people of the community are able to come to the masjid to get social support, economic support, political support, their mind's not going to be clear to receive guidance because that's going to hurt the khushu'. Just like why was the money even sent to us? To establish the salat and to pay the zakat. Well, if I got my bills on my back and I haven't eaten anything, it's going to affect my khushu'. It's going to affect my salat. Okay. So I believe that all of this plays into that.
Well, I tell you what the churches are doing, like where I live at. They give out food every week. They helping the people pay their bills. So they're viable in the community. So when all this shutdown happened, the churches may not be open for the Sunday because all the people together, but they're open for like giving out food.
Doing that as well.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
And I've went to a couple pantries. Some Bar Mitzvah Circle is one of them. They have programs out there
stuff going
that
on.
I believe that the Muslims, the Masajid should, if they haven't already. Well,
no. There are Masajids, not even just in Philly. There are Masajids in other places as well that are doing the same thing.
Yeah,
that are really.
And all these organizations should be doing that.
Anyway,
Masjid, all of them.
But the setup, if there's no system in place.
When I said profitable, I'm not just talking about economics.
Okay.
I'm talking about one thing that you mentioned earlier about the places being connected. Why do you go to the masjid in the first place? The profitable masjid is the masjid that understands that the people, the congregants that come there is only going there for the sole fact of Allah. They're connected to Allah, which makes them connected to the masjid. Mm-hmm. That's going to make that masjid raise.
Yeah.
Whenever you have the masjid not connected to Allah and is connected to the personality that's on the minbar, or is connected to the group of people that are running the masjid, or is connected to this and that,
it'll start to deteriorate.
SubhanAllah. And it won't become profitable like it's meant to be. So this the contrast. We're getting ready to get into this chapter right now. This is the contrast between the companions and their masjids and our masjids in 21st century. This is the contrast. So that's why I wanted to ask that question. Next thing you know, there are two types of masjid. Ibn Khaldun noted that city masjids are two kinds, all right? Great spacious ones, that's our real big masjids, right? Which are prepared for holiday prayers, okay? Not Easter, none of that. We talk about the Eid. We talk about the Eid. And there's only two types of Eid anyway, okay? Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr, all right? So, and which are prepared for holiday prayers, and other minor ones, which are restricted to one section of the population or 1/4, all right, of the city, which are not for generally masajids, all right? Now, in other words, there are small local masjids for daily prayers and big community masajids for ceremonial prayers like Eid al-Fitr, Eid al-Adha, and Salatul Jumu'ah. Now, I want to stop here and let you understand something. It's called Masjid al-Kabir or Jam al-Kabir. Big masjid serves a purpose, and the role that they serve is that they should accommodate the Muslims. If it's big enough place, it should accommodate the Muslims in that region or in that locale, the city. in that region city to do the highlighting points. We come together for our Eids, which is done outside. But we come together for our Eid al-Fitr or Eid al-Adha. We come together for our Salatul Jumu'ah. Imagine, just stop here. Imagine if we were running a structure like that where the biggest masjids in our city, right? The largest masjid that can accommodate
The ones that have
us,
the most capacity.
the most capacity, and we were really doing that. I remember Dr. Tar here, right now, what they did with the initiative, with the Eid initiative last year, when they consolidated with certain masajids to bring about a unified Eid, right? Which was more so trying to stick closely, not because Tar here is involved, but stick closely to, and all the people that was involved, not just him, but closely to what they're trying to click closely to the Sunnah. We have all of these Muslims in one city, but we have so many different Eids.
Yeah,
Every masjid has their own Eid.
We have all of these masajids in one city, but we got so many different masjids. And actually, that is not even according to the Sunnah. Sheikh Al-Albani, Sheikh bin Baz, Sheikh Uthaymeen, all of them mention how the Prophet ﷺ made it clear and explicit that you should not have that many Jumu'ahs in one city. Right? You shouldn't have that many Jumu'ahs. He shouldn't be given a Jumu'ah. He shouldn't be given a Jumu'ah. He shouldn't. And that part of the city, if that many people, it should be enough where it's the what? You have one masjid that can accommodate. Now, I know you're going to throw your head out. I know you're going to raise your hands. But they Ikhwani. But they such and such. But they such and such. Honestly, right? Honestly, if a person is Ikhwani, does it necessitate that you cannot work with him? Yeah, I'm going to open a can of worms right now because this is the night shift. This is what we do. If a person is Ikhwani, well, no, we did. Yeah. I'm for sure that the ulama already made it clear.
Yeah.
You can work with people because as long as it is upon ma'ruf.
A person being Ikhwani, even though they might err in the fealty that they made, in the membership that they signed up for, but that don't mean that their Aqidah, and that don't mean that their minhaj is not pretty much moving along with Kitab and Sunnah. All right? Can you work with them? Now I'm going to put another monkey wrench in the game. If you are the minority of the minority, can you afford not to?
That's where I'm at with
and
it.
we said this before.
We
said this before because how do you? Because I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna show you, man. I look around my neighborhood and I look around the city. I've been back in Philly a couple of months, and the pandemic hit. The economy started to crash, and a lot of them massages closed up and stuff like that. And we already had regulated ourselves to be isolated anyway. I always had a problem with that. I've always had a.
That don't make sense.
How do you isolate it? You're from a minority, and I ain't talking about in numbers because I don't believe we're the minority in numbers. But I'm gonna say at the very least we're the minority in resources. So we're the minority in resources. Now you're in a neighborhood surrounded by people that look like you, talk like you. You come from a womb of one of them. So you isolate yourself into a masjid, away from the general public that you live around, that you come from. Just 10, 15 years ago, you was doing the same thing they was doing. You've isolated yourself. So when these things happen, the pandemics happen, most of the Muslims, they close their doors and they just skated. And you drive around, you don't even see the Muslims. Like you used to see them on Fridays on the avenues and stuff like that. Obviously, we don't see that no more because the Jummah is closed down.
Yeah, but Sunnah Nabawi have been feeding the
elderly. I'm not making it specific. Yeah. I'm making a general statement about what's happening. Yeah. What I'm saying is that we've isolated ourselves so long to the point where there's really no connection with the community around the city anymore. Right. So I mean,
so he's taking it a step further, not just working with the Ikhwan, but we're such a minority that we have to be looking at working in our neighborhoods with non-Muslims to support community efforts.
It's permissible, period.
Because the masjid is a community center.
What you're saying is that
everybody should benefit from.
Goes directly against the structure that was laid down by the Sahabas for the masjid. It's no way in the world that you got the correct aqid and the correct minhaj, and your masjid is not playing a pivotal role
in that neighborhood.
Okay.
It don't make sense.
There's no sense. That doesn't make sense at all. You need to be able to be talking to so-and-so, so-and-so.
Right. In order to do that, now you have to network.
The aldermen, all them people.
Right, that's the job.
You're
that's
networking.
One of the roles of the masjid.
Well, of who now? If it's the imam now? What are we doing now?
We'll get to that later.
Where are we going?
Yeah, the imam plays a part of that in the structure that he builds around
himself. So networking, is you see this like the setup.
Being able to get with local influencers, local investors, local service providers, because you're a part of that. You're sharing in that community setting.
The Muslims should be a part of the chain of getting the aid and support to people in those neighborhoods in this time that we're going through.
That's there. And the reason why I wanted to bring up the two masjids in the first place is because during this pandemic, we can see how the larger masjids can help out the smaller ones.
Yeah.
That was one of my reasons of bringing it up. Because the smaller masjids can pour their resources from the largest ones. And I also want to talk about here the advantage of renting and the disadvantage of renting. You know what I mean? Because when you rent your masjid, this is one of the things that you go through.
Yeah, exactly.
Sort of what we're seeing right now.
Yeah.
Because when you rent your masjid, it's only a certain amount of time that landlord can allow you to go
without paying them something. And the need and the rush, the need to raise money up and funds up is because you want to meet the demand of actually appeasing the landlord, which is the landlord's right. But when you own your building, and when you rushing to pay him, just to add to what you're saying, it's not adding to the equity value of the community
at all.
What trust is that you're paying into that gives wealth and brings wealth to the community?
And you're putting pressure on a community that's already in pressure. Like they were pressured before the pandemic, under pressure, under the gun to get bills paid. Now you're putting them even under more guns.
My landlord at home is on me. My landlord at the store is on me.
And then
my masjid
landlord is
too
on
much
me.
Pressure.
No, not only just the pressure side. I want you to understand this too. Also, that what happens is we need to now relook those Masajids that are renting. It is permissible to rent. No one's saying that it's not. But they now need to take this time and relook of the advantages of what? Owning your building. One of the things that you should do, and the people that are in charge, they should be laying out a solidified plan to own whatever building they have.
Because this is an asset and liability conversation.
Exactly. These are one of the things that's going to help you weather storms such as this or any more that comes down the road. You should own your building. And because if that's the case, it makes it a lighter load. Another thing that could be talked about, again, is why counterproductive to this, and we're going to talk about it later, but just to touch on it right now, zakat plays a major role in this whole process.
Right.
Zakat is a misconception that you need a ruler in order to establish it. That's something that all of us dropped the ball on. You don't need an Islamic ruler to establish zakat. Yes, you might need an Islamic ruler to actually enforce zakat.
Yeah.
It's two different things, okay? But to establish the zakat, the obligation is still upon you.
And then you could create a Baitul Mal out of that.
Exactly, which is also another thing.
And then people can be paid out of
Mal, because when we talk about zakat, we talk about the treasury.
Yes, the treasury.
Endowments and stuff like that.
And then waqf is another thing that's also a part of it.
Yeah.
So all of these things need to be now, if you are a small masjid and you are renting right now and you're going through this crux, I know you want to raise money right now, continue to do what you're doing, but start thinking of a real organized structure and a plan that you can own your masjid. And one of the things you can do, and to be honest with you, ask yourself, is your masjid needed? If you got a large masjid which is only 20 minutes away from you, is your small masjid needed? And you got a large masjid right there?
And it will be somewhat self-amazement to believe that you're doing that much of a service that you need an independent building that you couldn't go and integrate with a bigger community.
So this would be my question. The first thing is that it seems to be a lot of egos going around. That's just my opinion. People have egos, whatever the case may be. That's just me.
But going nitty gritty over you, right?
No, I ain't going nitty gritty. I'm just saying there has to be some type of ego. Either I'm saying it's either ignorance, ego, which all plays all basically ignorance. But I'm saying it has to be something there, some egotistical belief there to do something like that. Because if you look at the big masjids, right? And they got a school in the masjid, like Philadelphia Masjid, for example. Right?
Philadelphia Masjid.
They got a big school. So say if this happens where people can't congregate the masjid because of the pandemic, they rent space out. They rent. You can come cook your food there, and you pay them while you're cooking your food. They got parts in there where you can come hold classes in there, and people can put little schools in there and pay them rent. So
it's a fallout shelter.
So it's a fallout. So the pressure on the community isn't there, but people got to now rush to pay sadaqah. The actual building outside of the musalla area is a business, and they take care of themselves.
And one thing that these bigger masjids could do is they can provide for the smaller masjids being open for the 5 salawats. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to get a smaller masjid, It should be for that purpose. An individual who work, he might have to go in between his job. You get a lunch break, you need to pray. He can pray. You have a local imam comes there, and this is laid out. Those bigger masjids can play the role now of the financier, of the actual overseer.
Right, because they'll have a certified public accountant
exactly.
that can create a balance sheet that can go out to smaller Masajid.
Y'all want to mess with people's money? That's y'all problem.
But this is all. But
y'all want to mess with people's money,
episodes.
You know what I'm saying?
Balance sheet.
Y'all want to mess with people's money, man.
Assets versus liabilities.
But
we need to organize.
Actually, in reality, this is what the Salaf was doing.
No doubt. No doubt.
We about to get to that. This is exactly what they were doing.
Yeah.
This ain't nothing where we're just coming up and saying, yo, this is only our own, not theirs. No. Because think about it. How much urgency will we need to donate money right now for smaller masjids that are in close proximity to larger masjids if larger masjid was overseeing them?
You wouldn't need it.
You wouldn't need that much. You wouldn't be an urgency of that because it's already be taken care of.
And it'd be easy to provide jobs and give aid.
And that's why
you'll know who the single women are. You'll know who the kids that are not in school are. You'll know who the people that are misplaced from their jobs and who has businesses that they can.
So let me ask you this. So
where's the networking?
So can we say this? Can we say by all these different masjids basically playing the role of a big masjid, basically, even the smaller one's trying to play the role of the big one? That means that the affairs of the community is scattered all over the place and nobody knows really what's going on.
Well, everybody usually goes to the person they know.
Yeah.
So if you marry me to my wife, I'm gonna take all my issues to you. Mm-hmm. But as soon as you stop working at this masjid, you take me with you.
No, call a spade, man. We ain't sugarcoating nothing. The reality is this. This is exactly what happened. Go back to Abu Muslim. We gotta go back. And this is what I wanted you to do.
Okay.
Go back to Abu Muslim. Mm-hmm. Look at his start. Okay? Look at his program. Look at East Orange. Look at everyone from, because it wasn't everybody in East Orange who only contribute to East Orange Masjid. That's a big masjid.
Yeah, a lot of people contributed. People from the whole state of Jersey and Philadelphia.
He had something at that time, whether you want to agree with it or not, that he had the ears and he had the cooperation and the influence from those communities.
And nobody had a problem with him being the knowledgeable person that he was and spearheading a lot of ideas.
Exactly. So now looking at the way that he was moving, not saying that everything he did was perfect. Okay. He was laying down the role and the structure for the role of the masjid and how it's supposed to play.
Well, he was using a lot of the stuff that we read in this article.
Well, yeah, he has a school. Well, he has a gym.
All of these different
kitchen,
functions.
Just like Philadelphia masjid.
So now when I say let's not sugarcoat, I mean this. Something came in, right? We'll get to that, and debunked and derailed that system, which was laying down a structure for us,
and provide inferior systems, fragmented,
which would have made us so strong today. Have the structure continued? That's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah. So it was a coup, basically.
You want to be hard with your words, but listen.
You said don't sugarcoat it. I ain't put no sugar on it. Come on, man, don't tell me. Don't,
all right, listen, you're right. So listen. So at the end of the day, what happened is that was derailed.
Yeah.
Individuals came in, and for whatever reason they believed it was right or wrong, they came in and they messed up a system that could have solidified us to this day. People will be accepting Islam in droves by the permission of Allah. We have a well solidified structure. If the masjid was what the role's supposed to be, a masjid is supposed to serve all of the following: social, economic,
political,
education,
family,
political, clinic, hospice. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
That's what's happening over in Cherry Hill.
Listen, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam
John Sterling
set a tent up for the wounded people in the army. In the masjid. Where did he put the tent at?
It was in the masjid.
It was in the masjid. He set it up for patients that were wounded in the battle, so that they could be in the masjid. We're showing us that the masjid can be used for a purpose of a clinic.
Yep.
So if the masjid is not utilizing all of these roles and fulfilling all of these hats and these responsibilities, it's also what? It's not serving its function to its full capacity.
Yeah, it's going to cause.
Well, basically, the masjid has been regulated to just praying 5 times a day and everybody scattering after that.
No, the masjid is not that.
Yeah.
The masjid is more deep than that. The masjid is, that's my man. I know they on 100. I know they with the scholars. They with such and such. I'm rocking with them. Forget the fact that masjid you're rocking with is written, it's struggling, it's right next door to a masjid that's big. that have really no problems in terms of, right? Forget all of that. But now we're not even going to deal with those masjids. We're not even going to deal with this masjid. They off it. They ain't coming with the dawah strong like we are. We quoting Sheikh so-and-so. We quoting these books.
Nobody and nobody from over there can marry our daughters.
Exactly.
That kills the
then
money.
Then it becomes masjids that are affiliated due to a person, place, or a thing, not because of Allah.
Yeah. And what happens?
That's what happens.
No, and then what happens is that all your energy, your materials, your access to wealth, your access to social help and aid and assistance becomes diluted and weak and stretched out. So now all this arguing going on, and now even if you don't argue with that particular big masjid or whatever the case may be, you don't all the way mess with them all the way. So now in this predicament right now, you can't even go to them and ask them to help you out of the situation.
You know what this reminds me of?
You just can't.
There's an ayat, and help me with the ayat, that if you leave off argumentation, even if you're right, there's an ejrul azimun. There's a great reward. Do you know which ayat
It's a hadith.
It's a hadith?
Yeah, the hadith is actually, the Prophet ﷺ said that the person, he guaranteed a house in paradise for the one who leaves off argumentation, even if he's right.
Even if he's right.
Abu Ali said it's a monopoly.
It's definitely monopoly.
Yeah, it's definitely monopoly, Yaki.
But that's what's popping into my mind here. Like, it's the debating. It's the after we don't agree. I can't stand the look. We was hugging. We was kissing each other yesterday. We disagree, and now I don't even give you salams tomorrow. Like, so we have to be able to disagree and stay toe to toe.
For the listeners, I really want you to get this to your mind.
Or hill to hill.
I really want to I want you to get this to your mind. You have to really start. You really have to start analyzing why are we so diversified, and start really learning to see why we are diversified. If you find out that we are diversified not because of the deen, and not because Islam is actually functioning that way, then there's a big problem.
There's a problem.
We are diversified. Majority of the reason why we are diversified got nothing to do with the deen, and it's not even in alignment with the Salaf as-Salih. I will stick to this. I can prove it. There are evidence that shows historically how they move, how they operate. Are we not seeing it?
Yeah, no doubt.
Are we not reading it?
No
Personal
You're going to see it's different.
Hupuriyasa.
You have to look at that.
Love for leadership.
Let me tell you something. I was reading up on invasions and occupations, right? And don't stop me. It's going to go right back to what we're talking about. Look at invasions and occupations all over the world, whether it was here in the Americas or whatever place in colonization.
Right.
That same game plan was ran here. Just because we mention masjids, we mention religion, we think that they're not running the same game plan. You come in, you break up the system that was there, and you take away, quote unquote, the leadership out. You remove them, then you come in with your own system. What you do after that, you start putting that system everywhere. You take it, and you say, all right, we're gonna put a masjid here. I'm gonna put a masjid here. I'm gonna put one here, and you start putting the people that's on your same ideology and with your same occupation and invasion, you put them everywhere. And then you spread out from there.
That's why we say what? It was sabotage.
Yeah, no doubt.
Because when you say that was premeditated. That was
without a shadow of a doubt.
It was sabotage.
You had to get rid of Abu Muslima and what was going on East Orange to do it.
It was up until recently, and I'm gonna say up until recently because now we have a new, I guess, a wave of the Masajid actually putting themselves on social media. But up until recently, there was two different worlds. There was the Islam on the ground, and there was the Islam on the internet.
Yeah.
And what the Islam on the internet did was it activated people to come in and cause nushus and division and bring things and put the pressure on the ground to move a certain way. Well, if you're not moving fast enough, you don't love the dawah. Well, if you're not moving like this, that means that you really have love for
or
this
give
being.
you time to corner the market and monopolize.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you'll come up with all of these websites.
But now
you'll
recently,
come up with all of these different things, and you'll say that this is the dawah, and if it's not coming this way, you got to look at it. Look at the list came up. These are the students of knowledge you should take from. These are the scholars that you should take from. And once you put the list out, everyone is prepared. What do it do to your mind? It make you think that whoever you don't see on that list, we can't take.
And that's why it's important.
Or you second guess.
That's why regional.
It's called religious colonization.
And that's why
that's what it's called.
Regional efforts. Regional efforts instead of trying to create the monopoly, because like you said, there's a balance between what we are scared of erecting a leader, being like this. We don't have a Mahdi, we don't have a Khalifa, but we're moving like this. People are worried about that. But without leadership at the same time, there's no unity.
Well, Islam established that you need leadership. Even to the fact that if you travel, what you got to do?
You got to pick an Amir.
Come on.
Wild animals got leaders in the pack.
Come on.
So there needs to be a middle course between, being the head of all of the Salafis in America and having regional leadership where you move in harmony and unison.
Abu Uwais Rahimullah already gave that talk. He talked about Hub al-Riyasa, one of the main structures that kills that. He already talked about the Masjid Jamid too. He said y'all should have one masjid big enough where we have Salat al-Jumu'ah. He was already saying the similar things we're talking about now. He was saying it years ago. He said it got something to do with love of Riyasa. People love leadership. I can't stand the bull. I just can't stand him on the minbar right now. You know what I mean? It's nothing. It's just dunyawi. Something evil within themselves, but it got nothing to do with the deen.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, and that's what they do.
But just to add on to what was common here was some government influences. I want to be honest. I want to be honest here.
We just trying to stick.
I want to be honest here. There is no such thing of any organizational structure being plotted against, or like you talk occupation, except that it has some of that in there.
Well, it's nothing that happens on American soil except the government has an eye or an ear.
No, I'm not talking about just the American.
Or okayed it. They allow certain things. I'm not talking about just
the American government here. I'm just talking about period.
In general.
There have to be a system that's behind.
But like what Sheikh Mufti said, if we're doing what we're supposed to do, and we're having proper thoughts of one another, and we're not allowing our greeds and our jealousies to get in the way of bigger picture or our personality flaws. There was a brother that came in here and he was, he give us a hard time sometimes in the comments, but when we got a chance to actually talk in person, he let me know what he was going through. And I said, listen, we may have character differences. We might not have, our personalities may clash, but you have a lot of knowledge. You know what you know. So we got to be able to get past that to service the youth, service the people.
No, I'm not saying that. This got nothing to do with that, but we got to be honest. When it comes structured, organized like it is, it's some influence behind it. It's a system behind it.
Yeah, I mean, even the way that they move. Look, listen.
It's a system.
After you invade and you occupy people, this next thing you do, you colonize their minds.
Exactly.
So what you have to do is that's what. Listen, and do you make the people you colonize evil? This is why they were so big on the list. That's why you're so big on these offit. That's why you're so big on this one, because you have to make the people you occupied and invaded be. Now, how can the people you occupied and invaded be the rebels and the people who now defending themselves against you? You see, so it's all colonization. I call it religious colonization, because all they did is that the people you occupied and invaded, you made them the enemies of the state.
All right. Okay. So listen, just so we can finish it up, the Masjid from yesterday and today, right? A brief comparison between the Masaajid of today and those of yesteryears reveals a very wide gap in terms of functions and roles. That's what everything we were just talking about pretty much. Yeah. So we don't got to elaborate on that. In the past, the earlier Muslims placed emphasis on the essence of the Masajid. I want to repeat this again. In the past, the earlier Muslims, and when we say the earlier Muslims, we talk about the Salaf al-Salih, the Sahabas. The earlier Muslims placed emphasis on the essence of the Masajid rather than its physical appearance. Okay? Rather its physical appearance. Okay? So that means they put what? We talked about it a lot. Sheikh Al-Albani used this as a big slogan. And he poured it from the hadith. What is this called? Tasfiyah wa tarbiyah.
Tasfiyah wa tarbiyah.
It talks about cleaning out, starting with the internal before the external. They were so big on how they taqwa was as opposed to how it's supposed to look. Yeah. They were so big on not worrying about if the masjid had chandeliers or if the masjid looked pretty from this aspect.
Banging carpet and all that.
Actually, Sheikh Mukbil written a whole book where he explained the impermissibility from those ahadiths of tabahi, of decorating the masjids. And how also it's from the signs of the hour that the masjids will be what? Decorated. People will compete in those things. He wrote a whole actual book on that, with ahadiths mentioning that. So we have to look at that. They were big. One of the things that was the contrast between the earlier Muslims and their masjids were what? They were big on spiritual essence than on physical appearance. Make sure you keep to that note. Whereas today, emphasis is on the what? The facade with disregard to its essential roles. Okay? Whereas today, emphasis is on facade with disregard to its essential roles. Thus, the key role of the masjid becomes restricted to the observance of 5 daily prayers and supplications on Sundays and adhkar sessions, right? Masjid was essentially part of the life during the time of the Prophet ﷺ. It was an essential part of life, all right? But today it has become isolated from life. Issa, you made this point earlier, when you seen how the masjids is isolating themselves from the people.
Yep.
The people, under the pretext of separating religion from temporal life, the masjid should not be separated. There is no secular, what they say, church and state.
Yeah,
Church
there's no
and state,
separation between church and state and Islam.
Exactly. A clear imitation of the non-Muslims, government-sponsored preachers, and politicians with inimical motives take the century stage in the affairs of masjids, and they position the imams have nothing
televangelist,
right, to do with politics, state matters of worldly events. What you will find some masjids, they will get endorsed by the government, and then they will post up the government campaign, their buttons, there are certain things like this.
We see that right here in the city. We see that
they put voting boxes in their masjid. This is not allowed. It is not allowed. Nor is it allowed to be sympathetic. So, yes, we do have politics. I'm going here, coach. I'm going here. I'm not sugarcoating. It's not allowed that if you have a Muslim personality and you have a Muslim following and people look up to you and you have an institution and now you want to rub shoulders with the politicians of the West and you act as if you don't understand the usul of the politicians of the West. And the usul of the politicians of the West is what Allah have said and His Messenger have said. وَلَن تَرَضَى عَنْكَ الْيَهُودُ وَلَا النَّصَارَى حَتَّى تَتَّبِيَ مِلَّتَهُمْ. Allah said in Surah Baqarah, they will never, neither the Jews or the Christians will be pleased with you until you follow their millah. Their job is for you to compromise your deen. So when you get rubbing shoulders with the politicians of the West,
have to have that in mind.
You got to accept the LGBT community. When you want to run with them, okay, we hear you. Got to accept the fact that this have to goes down. You have to drop your thing on this. Yeah, we have to understand and incorporate that. And what you find people doing, instead of being strong and sticking to the tenets and adhering to the tenets of Islam, they actually become weak, and then you see them doing this. You're like, I thought the brother was on a sunnah. And you saw the brother watering it down because they don't understand how to stick to their tenets, how to stick to what they're supposed to. You can be a politician. Let me rephrase this so nobody take this wrong. I'm not talking about Western politics, by the way. But politics exists in Islam. It's called Islamic. It's called Siyasat al-Islamiyya. You do have Islamic politics in Islam. All right. So if you understand how that works and how that runs, you can actually move towards that. Yeah. You can also set something up where as though you have a liaison where you deal with the non-believers so that you can support and position the Muslims that's in that country that are the minority so that they could have certain things. But you should not, under no circumstances, compromise your deen.
Yeah, like we see some Muslims today when they in these parliaments and stuff like that. Now you have the ones that don't submit, but a lot of them, you see them in these parliaments and things like that. They think they're getting ahead, but actually they're accepting homosexuality, they're accepting this, that, and the third. And it's funny because it's very easy ways to be able to deal with the system here without even giving up your deen. I mean, first of all, one of the problems is we come to them weak in the first place economically. So when you can produce, I guess, tax money, because we in this country, when you can produce and you have wealth and you have some strength behind you, when you go talk to them, you lay on the table what you want.
And that's the unity part.
And that's why you need unity.
Right, because when you have the unity, you can use your money as a weapon.
To move around the argument.
You can yield the money and you can make ultimatums. But if your masjid has got an appointment with the official at 3:00, and my masjid got an appointment with the same official at 4:00, the official is going to pick the masjid that got the most followers. When both of these masajid are on the same thing and they're both servicing the same people that live in a 60-mile radius.
And you can't be minding the politician. He only being a politician.
He only being a politician. So we showed up divided.
So think about that, right? The masajids that are running in our city and even around, why y'all don't have a yearly meeting? Why there's no monthly meeting?
They might.
Between the imams. Listen, I want to stop here for a minute because during Sheikh Mukbil time,
he trying to throw sugar on the turd.
We ain't put no cream in it.
No, you throwing sugar on the turd, man.
Sheikh Mufti did make some complaints about the lack of cooperation.
No, you have to have cooperation. No,
so we do have some.
But this is imperative, though. Because you still have to remember, in order to function and do what you're talking about, unity and solidifying yourself in position to be able to yield money and stuff like that, we have to actually come together
and create some.
We got to put our heads together. We got to work and put our resources together. That is not done. Every what you call it, board, or every type of board, whether COO or whatever, they have what? Daily meetings. They have meetings. Yeah. Why? You have to come and talk.
Yeah.
The Prophet ﷺ had a shura. The Prophet ﷺ had a shura. He consulted with his companions. He asked me questions about this.
But they're not looking at the Muslims in the city as one body.
No.
It's the Germantown Muslims.
Listen,
it's the South Philly Muslims.
We're not talking about
it's the West Philly Muslims.
I'm not talking about the official. I'm talking about the Muslims need to look at themselves as one body.
Yes.
That's what the Prophet ﷺ laid it down.
As us, as community, we need to look at ourselves as one body.
And this does not mean that...
And that puts pressure on leadership.
This does not mean that when we say look at ourselves as one body, that people who actually go against the Prophet ﷺ and actually Islam, as we're talking about, they are part of the body. That's not what we're saying. People who are Ahmadiyya, they're not even Muslims. We don't hold the position that the Ahmadiyya is Muslims at all. No doubt. All right? They actually believe that there is another prophet after the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so that already took them out.
And that's on Broad and Glen with that big
all right? So we're not saying that. So no. But when you're talking about Muslims who are ignorant, juhal, even if they ikhwani or they this and that, they could be a part of the main frame of the body of Muslims.
Yeah, of course.
As opposed to just some Shiites or people who worship with graves in their
masjid. And all the type of people.
Ahbash, like people that's really extreme and going up. That's not what we're talking about. But the Muslim is one body. Mm-hmm. And we need to start looking at each other as one body. And if this position don't show us that now, we're in trouble. If the pandemic right now don't show us how much we need one another right now, because Masjid is going to be going out and they're going to be losing their buildings and they're going to be losing this and that. If that don't show us right now, and even though the 3-phase guidelines is put in, we're going to lift up, but it's still not going to be the same.
But the thing about it is, the thing about it, we got to look at, and then we got to pay attention to what's going on around us, because the feds are saying they want to do the social distance up until 2022. So if that happens, where you getting this rent from to pay for these masjids, to keep these masjids open? So then even after they say if it goes another year, 6 months, the economic situation is going to be horrible.
It's time to regroup.
It's time to regroup.
You got a golden opportunity. All of you heads and administrative of the Masajid, you have a golden opportunity right now. What is the golden opportunity? Go back, as Sheikh Uthaymeen said, the closer you stick to the earlier Muslims, to the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the more correct you will be. You have a golden opportunity to see how they laid down the groundwork and how they ran their masajids and try to emulate that. Forget about so-and-so. Forget about, I need this many numbers coming in so we can line our pockets. Forget about, we need to run it like a business. Forget about just decorating everything. Mm-hmm. Let's think about how to do that. It mentioned here is that, and it shows you that Islam is a comprehensive deen. It combines between both spiritual and temporal matters in perfect harmony. And that's the truth. When Azal, and I want to end this after this, alhamdulillah, Allah Jalla wa Ala already tells you in the Quran that we sent down you the book. The Quran is an opposition to everything. So Allah mentioned that the book holds the answer to everything. Allah says, وَلَقَدْ فَصَلْنَا فِي هَذَا الْقُرْآنِ Allah says that we have laid down in detail in Surah Isra every example you can think that's in the book. So we cannot start thinking that Islam is not suitable for every time and place. That's a big error. That's a big mistake. All right. Furthermore, the masjids in the past serve as a place from which the Muslim leaders launched their message of Islam. All right. We know that when Umar ibn Khattab, when he was the leader of the Muslims, where would he hold his office at? Was in the masjid.
Yeah, he did.
His office was in the masjid. We know this. This is something there. However, we want to make a point here, though. Today's masjid has sunk into irrelevance, stagnation, and iniquity. Hardly do scholars utilize it for agenda setting and strategic thinking for the betterment of the Muslim Ummah. The masjid of yesteryears was a modest structure built with simplicity and sincerity. Its roof was made of the branches of palm trees. Its carpet was ordinary pebbles and sand, yet enhanced God consciousness, meaning taqwa. Today, masjid is a combination of sophistication and elegance, adorned in luxurious tiles and carpets of exotic quality and style. The roof of the present generation masjids are made from silver, gold, and expensive materials, yet cannot enhance in taqwa like the masjid of old. Today, the Muslim busy themselves with decoration of the masajids with fanciful type tiles. They also struggle for the positions and other un-Islamic tendencies which are alien to the masjid management. That's deep. Yeah. That was deep, right? That was deep right there, because that's the truth.
Yeah.
Majority of us are only worrying about the outer shell.
That's it. Yep.
And that's why we're not producing that spiritual essence.
No, we're not.
And I mean, and then the outer shell can also mean the numbers.
Yep.
Not just that you raise the chandelier, but the fact that who comes to your masjid. Yeah. That can be exterior veneer for you.
We can't do all of this at once. I know we went too long, so I just want to try to rush up to this point because I had a certain amount I wanted to cover just for this talk. Yeah. I want to just do this, so I'm not going to add lib.
We did good today.
Yeah, we did do good. All right, so when you want to establish, we left out one thing though, the Qibla. All right, the Qibla. Why is the Qibla so essential in this talk? Why is the Qibla so important to Muslims? Why is the Qibla so important? And how does it help out right now? You brothers already know the answer. We already dealt with this.
Well, the Qibla establishes unity.
There we go.
All of the Muslims are praying in the same direction all over the world.
All right, so that you know, there was always a place, if you go back to history, there always was a place where the people would turn to. Before the Qibla of Mecca, it was the Qibla of Quds, Jerusalem. The people would turn their direction and turn themselves, that sense of what? And it brought a sense of unity. No matter wherever you at in the world, you would turn your direction towards there. Then Allah Jalla wa Ala says, Qad nara. Allah said, indeed we see you looking fi sama in Surah Baqarah towards the skies. And that Allah Jalla wa Ala knew that the Prophet ﷺ wanted a Qibla that would please the Ummah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instituted that what? Wherever you may be, whether you're in the east or the west, face towards the direction of the Qibla. The Qibla plays a direct role in unity. And when you find people going against that Qibla, which also shows us how we go against each other in unity. You find an individual saying, no, let's pray southeast. You find an individual saying, no, let's pray this way. You find an individual saying, no, let's not do this. You bring that unified front. So I just wanted to bring that.
I mean, something about unity, man. Is, and I'll let you go. I'm sorry, I hope I cut you off, Coach. But when we talk about the unity thing, could you imagine, right? Two things. The first thing is, could you imagine if some numbers that I've read and researched, there's about 400,000 Muslims in the Philadelphia area, right? So could you imagine if the majority of those people were on the same wavelength and working as one body? When you go to these government officials, you're actually a political block at that point.
You're a political block.
Because your money and your businesses and your schools make money for the state.
That's what we need to get to.
So hear me out. And when you go to the governor, you go to the mayor, he has, who's there? The Muslim envoy is here. These guys pay 20% of the taxes in the city.
I'm going to tell you what happens.
So check it out, right? So when that happens, he can listen to you. So when these pandemics happen and all this stuff like that, they have to listen to the Muslims' concern of what's going on around them. And another thing, so you can go ahead. If you close a fist, it hurts. If you open the fist, you can break one finger at a time.
Because it's divided.
And I'm adding to the point. Yeah. We need it's two things that I wanted to bring, but we're not there yet. But I'm gonna skip ahead. Yeah. You have what is based, something that is based in Sharia and something that is Sharia compliant. Okay. If we don't engage more on the level that you're talking about, when those policies are going into effect, when those new laws are going into effect, we won't have any say at the table to make things more compliant or more compatible to what we believe in as a community. And our answer is to shut down and then just rebel. But our religion don't tell us to shut down or rebel. Nice so point. We need to meet the inevitable head on with knowledge, with patience, and with strategy. And there's no big I's and little U's. You might got the big pockets, you might got the big followers, and you might got the biggest kufi, meaning the knowledge. That has to orchestrate and work together. Whether
they mean to communicate together,
right? And if I know we believe that we represent the Muslims at large all over the world. No, man. Every community is responsible for themselves, and we're looking for others to be responsible for us, and they're running away.
But this one, another problem is too. Again, like I said, I always bring Chinatown in. I'm gonna bring it to why I always go back to Chinatown, because I used to be down there a lot, drinking my coffee. You know me. You know how I do. Right. I can't do that no more now. So everything's closed. But I'm saying is that I watched. They have Malaysians, Indonesians down there. Obviously, those are the Muslims. They have the Koreans and all of them. They're the Christians and the Buddhists and all that stuff like that, right? And when they move for political reasons, because when laws get passed about indigenous people, right? So-called black people in America, when laws get passed for us, the Muslims who are from that community are under those rules too. So we forget that we need to make sure that we're involved when those laws get passed too, because we're affected by those laws. Because the Indonesian and Malaysians in Chinatown, when those laws and stuff, when people get voted for and all, whatever the case may be, they involved. They jump in. You know why? Because any law that's passed on their community affects them, not just the Chinese. So the Muslims got to understand, when we are block, when we're stepping up to these political people and we're dealing with these issues, we got to understand that we're not just a Muslim community. We're surrounded by other people that's like us. They are our people. So when things happen to them, and political things get passed on them, economic things happen to them, police brutality, all that stuff happens, it affects us too, because we live in the neighborhood with them and we are them. Because the government and the cops don't look and say, oh, that's a Muslim Negro. Or we have to understand that we have to be in tune about what's going on and those affairs too, because those things affect us as well.
Okay, let me add to this. I want to go back to what Coach was saying too. I'm going to add to both of that. Just to be just, there were people, and there are still people today that are doing some of these things.
Yeah.
But like Coach said, it need to be a communication.
Yeah.
Now
it's not as organized.
Mm-hmm. But there are groups of Muslims that have been doing and talking and doing the same thing. It really was. Yeah. I know it is. Muslims that's out there doing it. However, for whatever reason, political purposes, minhaj purposes, we might don't agree with them. We might say they're Ikhwani, they might say this. Whatever the reason is. All right. Yeah. So there are people. That's to be just. I just want to be just. There is some people
there are
looking like this and thinking like this on this level. But then there's this cancer that happened. And I keep going back to Abu Muslim. The cancer that took place that affected the urban Muslims and the urban Masajids and our communities, the downtrodden, they have affected us so bad and so poorly that if anything got the word politics or smell like politics, we don't go near it. If anything got something to do with organizational or moving structure, such as what we're talking about, we don't go near it. If anything is talking about let's come together as a political bloc so that we can strategically make moves on behalf of the Muslims at large and on behalf of the people that we cannot go near it.
And honestly, and that's the stuff that War of Deen Muhammad was doing. Brothers wouldn't even have been able to go to Medina in the first place if War of Deen Muhammad didn't cut certain deals, working in government, being a politician. So it's like, come on.
So what I'm saying is, what they did is the cancer came in and it did that and it affected us, and to this day, that is affecting us in the way that we look at one another and the way that we deal with one another. But what they also try to do, the cancer did, is this. They said, look, when it comes to religious knowledge, the scholars gave us the stamp of approval that you need to go through us in the West. This is what happened. When it comes to any religious affairs, and here I'm talking about individuals who don't got no PhDs, they've got no academic prowess. There's no academic achievements that will pit them in that
secularly
role
or religiously.
We go religious colonization,
but
like I said.
We say, okay, now everything needs to be filtered through us. But at the same time, our masjids are still struggling. Our people are still drunk, intoxicant. Our people are still being left out in the cold. These things are still being done. So there's nothing really being politically pushed for us. What about the Muslims that go to the public schools? Where's the fight for their Eid? Where did the fight for their Ramadan? How was they left out? If they're in public schools, you might argue, well, this is a blanket statement. It's ignorant to make a statement like this. Okay, it's haram to go to public schools in the first place. All right, come on. So,
but what's the reality on the ground?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So do we blanket that? Where is the body of Muslims that are fighting on behalf and collectively putting forth? And I find it pragmatic that an individual will champion that they are the strongest in Aqidah, that they are the strongest in minhaj, but they are the deficient when it comes to diplomacy. They are deficient when it comes to interacting and doing all of these things right here. How can you be deficient?
Because we ain't found the Salafi deficient in diplomacy.
You don't find it.
They was the epitome, they was the epitome of Aqidah.
The Prophet sent letters to where? To all the known rulers. He sent letters to all the known rulers. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, Umar ibn al-Khattab, what was they doing? What was they laying down? All of this was laid out. So for you to tell me all of a sudden now, we can't get involved. And then the cancer come out. We can't go to colleges. We can't do this. Man came from Sheikh Ubaid camp. They said he was Sheikh Ubaid's student. Why was he in the West in the first place? Going to college. Engineer. Right? Think of it, man. It was cancer. I'm going to call it what it was.
It was a cancer.
It was cancer. It affected us so bad that we became divided. Husbands stopped dealing with wives. It got to split. Sisters stop dealing with sisters. Brothers stop dealing with brothers. And to this day, it's like we cannot recover. And the only individuals that we're finding out now that everyone is asking us for money to give to the masjid. And we want to support everybody. I want this masjid. I don't want no masjid to close. But what do I do now? I'm torn. Who do I give? Can I give my money to Philadelphia Masjid? Can I give my money to United Masjid?
You can if you want.
Can I? According to the kids, I can't support this type of stuff.
Yeah, because I'm supporting his beer. Or I'm supporting Ikhwani, or I'm supporting this. You know, it's something I read about Uthman that he did, right, in Medina. Remember when he bought the well, when he paid the money, bought the well for everybody in Medina?
We'll say this for the next
for everybody in Medina to benefit from?
Yeah.
Now, everybody in Medina wasn't Muslim.
No.
So, when I read that, it was like, wow. So, when the Muslims made moves, they made moves for everybody in their community. And everybody benefited. I don't care what religion they were, what color they were, whatever the case may be, you know. So we live in neighborhoods, everybody brown like us. But what I'm saying is the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba, when they made moves, everybody benefited from their moves. How we moving and the whole neighborhood's not benefited? And because all we're going to say, I don't care about no Kafirs anyway. Show me what a Salaf move like that.
Well, here's your answer. Islam is for who? Humans or not?
Yeah.
It's for humans,
right?
It's for humans.
So it's supposed to make you the better human.
Yeah.
Islam is supposed to make you the better human.
That's what I'm saying. I mean,
So
whether they
if it's
accept your
not,
call
he
or
wasn't
not,
right.
you're still supposed to do
Yeah.
beneficial things for them. Even if they accept your call or not.
Well, that's the point.
That's what I'm saying.
Because you're doing it for the sake of Allah.
That's what I'm saying.
Alhamdulillah, this is going to be like a 4-part episode. So we did episode 1 today. There's going to be a lot of stuff that we're going to be discussing. And next week, stay tuned for that, inshallah ta'ala. We're going to discuss more and cut on some things. We're going to lead up to our point about financial management and financial literacy. We didn't get to that yet. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about assets. We're going to talk about liabilities within the managing of the masjid. We're going to talk about masjid purposes and roles. Redefining that. What is the purpose of a masjid in the first place? What is the role of a masjid? We're going to get into that. We're going to talk about the different things of talking about the boards and the process of how that's set up
and looking at the masjid more as a business.
Should
the imam be the CEO of a business, which is the masjid?
Yeah, so we're going to talk about
and
those.
really being
Endowments
realistic
and stuff
endowments.
So we got some good stuff coming up. We're going to be on this topic, like I said, for like 4 episodes. Inshallah ta'ala, we're going to be talking about this. So please, brothers and sisters, if you got any questions, please, normally I would say save them to after the talk, because hopefully we're going to cover those stuff within it. And like I said, this is not a jab at anybody, but we got to call a spade a spade. And as Allah Jalla wa Ala tells Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the Quran, that Allah is not shy of telling the truth. So I'm not going to be shy in retrospect for telling the truth. The truth
No,
is
no
the truth.
doubt. I mean, and on top
I'm not
of that,
sugarcoating it. The
you
truth is
should
the
be
truth.
going to the masjid for sadaqah and for aid and support.
That's one way, and you
You know
still
what I'm
should be
saying?
supporting.
I mean,
aiding
honestly,
the
that's what I'm saying.
It's
But
a
work
balance-
hand in hand.
it's a balance between the
work hand
two.
in
It
hand.
just don't seem like it's a balance. I mean,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
it has to be one.
And work hands to hand. The money that's being pumped in the masjid should also be distributed into 3 ways. That's why certain things that need to be instituted. We touched on that. Zakat. We're going to talk about that more. How that really supposed to be set up.
And
without
now,
a ruler.
and now we can see the wisdom
The
of not,
Beit
of
Mal.
not, the Beit Mal.
And waqf. And
man.
endowments.
Yeah.
All of those things plays in giving
The
the
investments
masjid
and all those type of
independence.
things, yeah.
Which means it comes from where though? How do you get those things? It comes from either someone who's actually going to donate something, or it comes from any type of donation that is given, period.
Yep.
So on the ground level, if you give your money, that money should be well treasured and go into something.
But the treasury has to have knowledge of finance just as strict as the imam has knowledge
That's
of
what
the
we get in the
deen.
finance.
Yes, and we talked about that earlier.
Knowledge is wealth.
We talked about that
Because
earlier.
endowments, investments, owning
All
property, that's
that.
all financial.
If the money is working
That's all
for you,
financial.
that
That's
means
all
now
financial.
the masjid can now be a conduit for aid and support, and not a liability on the community. Not that it's
Exactly.
ever a liability,
Exactly.
but
Why
the way
do our
that the way
sister-
that it runs, it can be burdensome financially
Why do our
versus
sister-
versus a benefit financially.
Why do our sisters who suffer
economically
from domestic violence got to run to a Christian shelter?
Salvation Army, something like
Or
that.
Salvation Army? Why?
We running
Why
away- we
is
running
it
away
nothing
from that.
established within the Muslim community that deal with the battered, sheltered woman?
Is it because endowment, zakat, and that type of system hasn't really been established?
No, we got the funds.
Yeah.
The funds is going in.
Yeah,
What's going on?
yeah.
The funds is going in. We got the funds.
We're being told it's not enough.
No, we're not gotten the necessary knowledge in the
Is it not? Is it not enough, or is it not being managed properly?
Or the system is not. The system is
not
not in
the
place.
proper knowledge, you're not managing properly.
Exactly.
So we should be able to take a little bit of money, and we should be able to create large impacts with that little bit of money.
Like according to what the brother was saying in the article, if the system was the same way the Salaf had, then we wouldn't see these issues. We would see sisters have a place to go. We would see people when they can't pay their rent. It's a pandemic. The masjid is still viable, and they say, you know what? Here,
We should have a Muslim rehab. You know how many Muslims on drugs? I like to see the real stuff. I'm not throwing under the carpet. We should have a Muslim rehab. Where's the Muslim rehab at? Why are we still working with the 12-step Christian program? Why? How come a Muslim didn't develop one-step program to help you get off drugs or anything like that?
I'll give you I was in Atlanta. It was this brother. He created a system, and he called it curing mental illness with Tawheed. And it wasn't just for non-Muslims. The most important that came to him were non-Muslims. And when the Muslims came in, obviously it was somewhat more detailed because you could talk to them more a detailed issue. But when the non-Muslims came, he still used the same principles, but for them. It was called Curing Mental Illness with Tawheed. Man, it blew my mind. So we can do these things. You know what I'm saying? We just got to organize it. We got the people.
And we have to network with people who have passion for certain subjects. That's another thing we talked about. We wanted to go into some other subjects. And I said, do we have passion for it? Yeah. So a part of delegating, scouting talent, we need the people who are good at networking, people that are good with leadership, people that are good with business, that know a lot of people to try to start to plant these seeds that we're talking about right now, because it's going to take a village. And it's going to take a group understanding and a group push for us to employ some of these ideas. Yeah.
Inshallah ta'ala, thank you for tuning in. Make sure you tune in next week, inshallah ta'ala, based on my man Coach schedule. We'll let you
know. Man, you had to put him out there.
No, I'm ready, y'all.
You know what I'm saying? Out there, man.
And the mutaakhir, often. You know what I'm saying?
So hopefully we're
going to get better with that, y'all.
Yeah, inshallah ta'ala. Thank you for chiming in. If you got anything that you saw that we made any errors or any mistakes, we would like to say that it's from ourselves and the shaitan. Whatever we did correct was definitely from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala aiding and supporting us. And we also said if you can encourage and you can help out any masajids that are struggling during this time, and if you do have extra surplus that doesn't take from your initial take up to help you out and you and your family with your landlord, we also encourage that you do help. So don't get this talk that we're saying not to help and not to donate.
And if you guys, here at the Search and Rescue Store, we do have a table out front where we give out free food, we give out free clothes, we give out free sneakers. That's going on.
Come on down if you can stop by.
If you want to grab something, we're 3101 West Glenwood. If you want to donate, also we'll have things here that we can organize as well.
Also, we do got masks for sale as well.
Masks for sale. If you want to donate a mask to people in the medical field, first responders, come in with us. We can work on some of those programs as well. But it takes a village, guys. Come on, man. Let's do it.
No. Jazakallah khair.